Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, I am sitting down with world-renowned entrepreneur Brian Esposito. This man is absolutely amazing. When you talk about doing business with empathy and compassion and with your heart, this man has it all. He had a life-changing moment that kind of altered everything for him, but his perception on the world is very positive. It's all about empowering yourself to ask the right questions, making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people, using obstacles and hurdles in your life as blessings in disguise, and to help you grow and to move forward. This is extremely inspirational, motivating. You're going to learn a lot. This is an episode you do not want to miss. This guy is fascinating. I felt so honored that he agreed to come on my show because he's on so many great shows. So we are talking in business and how to just lead with compassion and to make sure that you're attracting the right people and circumstances into your life, because life is meant to be joyful. So we'll be right back after this brief message on this episode of Next to Madison.
Hey, it's Madison Malloy. I just wanted to remind you to make sure you grab a copy of my book, Time to Lighten the Fuck Up. It is a great, funny self-help book that is going to help you get out of your own way. I have already helped thousands and thousands of people, and they are on their way to living their dream life, and I want every listener to be able to live their dream life as well. So grab a copy of the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or even the audiobook on Audible. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. We are with our very exciting and knowledgeable, amazing guest. We've got Brian Esposito, world-renowned entrepreneur, who is with us today to drop the tips and tricks on how to be successful, and most importantly, how to be positive while you're doing it. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Madison. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited that you're here. So tell the audience about you. You're a very fascinating individual. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I love that. Thank you for that description. I'm going to agree with you. So it's a 20 plus year professional career, always as an entrepreneur, which a lot of your listeners that are taking this discussion in, it is a painful journey, a very painful journey. But honored to have been through some of the most amazing experiences of my life, self-funding companies, building companies, acquiring and merging with companies. So present day, I built what is known as a holding company. So it's wholly owned by me at the top level. There's over 110 companies now within my holdings. There's over 200 joint ventures from around the world and proudly operating in over 25 different industries. So wow. I'm honored. And look, thank you. Yeah, it's actually redid my entire site over the last few weeks, and it got a little emotional looking back and seeing, what I've been able to build, especially going through some really rough times. So that's what I'm holding, and it's I look at it like exceptional IP, products, technologies, services, and solutions. Great management in place running these companies and pushing them forward. And then that's all supported by great legal, accounting, compliance, and regulatory. And then that's even further supported by our investment banking, private banking, and strategic capital partners. So that's what I built. I built it out of survival. I could never find a firm or an organization that could actually see what I wanted to build and help me build it. So I figured it out by myself. But what I really love to do, thank you, Madison, what I really love to do over the last 7 years now is take what I built and I get invited into and work with startups, even if they're Fortune 500 companies, and I help them grow, I help them succeed, I open up new markets. And it's looking at what my holdings are and my assets are, pairing it with what they're trying to do in business or the market they're trying to go into and create value, boost balance sheets, help these entrepreneurs succeed. And at the end of the day, it's the most rewarding thing I can do with my time because I've been through so much. So if I can help an entrepreneur avoid some issues that I went through or pitfalls or setbacks and keep them positive and energized and happy, it's therapeutic for me and it helps me justify what I've been through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about that because you shared that with me. So here you were, you started this entrepreneurial journey and you were just kind of going through the motions, getting rich, being successful, but you shared you weren't living life as pure. I don't know if that's the word, as pure as you would like. Maybe it was more materialistic at the time. It was, hey, look at all this money I'm making. Now my Johnson's bigger. how you see not you, but that's how some guys are, right? Like, look
Yeah.
at how big my dick is now. And you had a life altering moment. So
Yes,
tell us a
ma'am.
little bit about that. That kind of changed everything for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, prior to that story, I never been materialistic. I think at times I wish I kind of was, so I can enjoy the hard work. I always reinvested into what I was building or hired people, and when you do that the wrong way too, it's even less rewarding than buying yourself something. But at the time that you're bringing up, 2016, February 2016, I was hit by a drunken on drugs driver, in a head-on collision in Nashville. At that time, I had 30 or so holdings. It was a devastating moment for me across all different levels of my life: personal, professional, emotional, spiritual. And I walked away from that, even though I had dealt with post-concussion issues, but not a scratch on my body, which was pretty amazing if you saw what the vehicle looked like. And I got hit by a big pickup truck. And I managed to well, a few things happened. I started to lose everything because my mind works very quickly. Like that's the connector, and not using spreadsheets or Slack or those programs. Everything for me is in my head, and I can remember and connect dots and calculate and execute very quickly. So when you take that away from me, it's like taking the bat out of Mickey Mantle's hands. He's not going to be able to hit a home run. So dealing with that and basically feeling crippled, paralyzed and crippled, and then my world just slowly fell apart and fell apart, fell apart. Wound up losing basically everything, but holding on to the companies that I had interest in, but there was nothing happening there. They were just in purgatory. And I never filed for bankruptcy because two things. I didn't want that word next to my name. And I also have been working with all my lenders and creditors, say, I'm going to pay you back even if I file for bankruptcy. That's just the way that my DNA is. I'm not going to screw people. Yeah. So why even do that? Just work with me. Some did, some didn't. It was very disheartening. Employees that I co-signed for cars and homes for, once they knew that I didn't have any money to pay them, I didn't even get an hour from them. Brands and companies that I made very, very wealthy told me lines like, Brian, what do you want us to do? We're not a bank. So when you hear that and you were their first person that believed in them and you helped them grow and you helped them become the monster that they are at that point, and then they're not willing to lend a hand back and help you get back on your feet, two things can happen. You can either learn from it or you can hate the world. So I said, if I'm going to sit here and be bitter and jaded, odds are I'm not going to ever recover from this, because you're dealing with all kinds of internal demons in addition to all the external stuff that you have to correct in your responsibilities. So through a lot of brain trickery, just pushing through, I said, I'm not, all right, there's a reason for all this. So I wound up being very grateful that woman hit me, because she changed my entire life and made me realize that my model was wrong. I'm also grateful that she hit me, because she could have killed somebody and ruined a family, or ruined a lot more than just my businesses. So from there, I had to rebuild, and I had to rebuild understanding, you know what, Brian, you're the value. You need to learn how to monetize yourself, not products that you're selling or IP that you're building and redistributing. What's the value in what you do? And I realized it's me. I'm the one that meets people like you and builds the relationship and nurtures that relationship. And at some point, maybe there's a business relationship there, maybe there's not, but it's still that process that I'm so good at. I said, okay, well, I have to find a way to earn and start paying things back and get my life back in order. So I started to look at myself basically like a slave out in the market. I need to go and earn. I'm the one it's my brain that's valuable. So let's go and figure out what that number is. And it's an interesting process when you never priced yourself in the market. I'm not an athlete. I'm not an entertainer. I'm just a business person out there trying to succeed and trying to earn. So that's, that was still a devastating moment in my history. I have flashbacks every once in a while because it was very dark moment in my life. And to fight back from that, I don't think many people can do that.
No. So were you always strong, or was this such a life kind of rattling event that you had no choice?
I think life is all relative. So somebody listening to this could have a hell of a lot worse story than me. So please don't take offense to this, but I've always had a difficult life for my life. I've always had to face unnecessary issues. I've always had to overcome weird situations. I've always had some individual come into my life and disrupt it. So I was used to always problems, which is kind of a crappy way to live. I actually
Oh.
I'm really nervous when things are calm because I'm just not used to that. I'm like, if something's calm, I'm like, this is scary. Something big must be brewing. So where
Oh
is it?
no.
I'm looking for it. But always strong, always a fighter, always out earning. I never got anything for nothing. So I'm a worker. If roles were different and I was handed the shovel and was told to dig holes on the side of a road, I would dig the biggest, fastest, deepest hole because that's just the way I'm wired. But I utilize my work ethic into creating value, boosting balance sheets, finding ways to create jobs for people, finding ways to build companies that can be self-sustainable. So
Yeah.
I'm just good at that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but when I see the opportunity, I never give up on it. I just see it through.
Yeah, no, that's key. And these companies are very lucky to have you. But it's one of those things where, there's a lot of good people out there, but there's also a lot of bad. And I
Oh yeah.
think, sometimes, kind of money and power, when people get too successful, they start to use it in negative ways and they start doing things that are kind of against their values. Like, how did you stay so in your values and like grounded through the ups and
Uh,
downs and especially with the
yeah.
success?
I sometimes I wish I had a vice, or I wish there was something where I could have that outlet. See, my outlet is working and doing more work, so that's where I find it's like my joy, it's my hobby, it's my occupation, it's all the same. Uh, I'm an old soul, which sucks because it's a very lonely feeling, even if you're surrounded by a lot of people. Being the way that I am, I can connect with people, I think a lot of the times at a superficial level, but it's really hard for me to connect with people at the level that I want to connect with them. And that's I'm going to put the word normal in quotes. It's just, basic things like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? What's your passions? Not what are you driving? What's your favorite purse? Or your favorite watch brand, or what
Yeah.
fancy vacation you're going on. This is all noise, and it's nauseating to me. I want people to enjoy their lives. I want people to work hard and do great things and have great moments. But something got lost where it now became more about showing off that rather than keeping it personal and keeping it within your own reward system, and not for everybody else to feel left out or insecure or inadequate because they can't be at that level that you're showing off.
Yeah.
So when I see that, I think that also kept me in check because I would see, I kind of grew up in a wealthy area. So when you see people acting like that and then being the way that I am and wanting to learn from people and always wanting to be around older people, like I just felt like I never want to represent myself that way. I never want to be perceived in that light because I don't like seeing it. So therefore, I don't want to reflect that into what my brand is or my personal brand is.
Yeah. But you probably work with a lot of people that obviously aren't like you and tend to be more of that. If you can't do something for me, then you're useless.
I used to have to because my old model was wrong, like I mentioned before
Yeah.
that accident.
Okay.
And now I tend to say true freedom is the ability to have choices. And I turn down more business than I take because if we're not, at least all my holdings in our corporate vision is grounded, humble, empathy. If you don't have any of those things, I don't care if we'll make $1 trillion together. I'm not spending my time with you because it doesn't work for me. And if it works
Yeah.
for you, great. I don't judge people, but I know what works for me. I know what I want to be around. And from my experiences, if you're motivated by things and money and going after more materialistic things, then you're not a few things that I feel you're not ever going to be happy. But more importantly, as it relates to me and my holdings and companies, you're going to put me in harm's way because you will do anything you possibly can to get more and more and more, which means odds are you're probably not going to be making the most ethical decisions as you continue to spend. You need to always have earnings
Well
coming
said.
in. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Just how I feel, but it's. I think most people find themselves in harm's way because they just want to give this perception that they are God, right? They have all the power and money and wealth in the world. But I just think you're a lost soul if you're acting like that, and I hope you find yourself because that doesn't justify your worth, and it doesn't mean that you're happy or a good person.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And it's true. I mean, we all want like financial freedom and that's great, but I think there's more of a peace when you get the wealth because everybody deserves to be abundant and wealthy, but you have it invested into things that you love, whether it's companies or real estate or helping family members, whatever it is, and that you can sleep at night because you know you don't have to do something you no longer hate. But
Yeah,
it's when you start having to spend money you don't have or being on certain things to prove something to somebody else, that's when money is not working for you, it's working against you. Like money is meant to make your life easier and to help others, but and it's great to have like the cars, the houses, whatever you want, but just make sure you're not doing it to try to impress somebody else, because
exactly.
then that's the wrong reason. Like
Yeah,
if you want a
or
Chanel bag, that's awesome, but like if you're doing it to show people that you've made it, well then that's the wrong
it's
reason.
the wrong reasons. I agree. And
Yeah.
again, I want people to have the best things in the world and feel amazing about themselves. And it has to. I think you also have to earn it. Otherwise, I don't think you ever appreciate anything. If it's constantly given to you, or some people grow up with a silver spoon or a more blessed life as it relates to resources around them.
Right.
And I think history's proven third generations tend to ruin everything from rulers to family businesses. So there's a reason for it because the work wasn't put in to build that where it is to the level that it's at. And I don't blame those third or fourth generations because they weren't there. It's not their fault. It's
Right.
the upbringing of understanding hard work, earning money, saving money. It's not easy, and I think we're in the hardest time ever as far as finding a way to earn, finding a way to maintain a simple life is extremely expensive around the world, even if it's buying eggs or milk, and it's not easy. So my heart breaks for people out there. So that's why with our holdings, I preach empathy. From some of our conversations, I'm out there traveling the world working because I need to know what the markets are doing. I need to know how
Yeah.
people are feeling. You can't run a company or a business if you're on the 60th floor of a New York skyscraper preaching down rules and pricing, and it doesn't work that way. There's a disconnect. And if you're not out in the world
Yeah.
and feeling people's pain and experiencing what real life is like, then I think your businesses will never succeed and they'll never go to the levels that they should.
No, that's very well said. Because you take like one of the richest families in the world, Walmart, and like, do they relate to their clientele? Not at all. Like,
No,
not
I don't
even.
think.
Do you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
that's how they're making all their money. But I wonder if things would be a little different if they were out there really connecting with their markets.
Yeah. No, that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, I think that's important, especially during the startup phases too, to know like what why people want to choose your product. And
Yeah.
people like the good companies. They don't want this like corporate crap where people are just doing it to inflate the shareholder price. So
Yeah.
that brings up another question. How many of your companies do you take public? Because sometimes when companies go public, that's when they actually lose those core principles and values that are so important to you.
Yeah. Well, they shouldn't, but they do. So a recent
Right.
one I can tell you about. I just took over as CEO of Diamond Lake Minerals, DLMI.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of the most cleanest structured companies I've ever seen that was just sitting in limbo. I think it's good karma, my life's work and timing where I found this company, Michael Reynolds, the president, very old school guy, late 70s, early 80s. He ran a very amazing broker dealer out of Beverly Hills for over 30 years. And we had one conversation, and I'm 42, he's in his 80s. Like that's my mentality. So it's either boring and sad to me. Either way, that's who I am. That's who I relate with. That's the type of person and business philosophies I preach. Earnings. Don't ever say unicorn to me. If you say unicorn to me, it better be some kind of Halloween candy. I don't want to hear about the idea of a unicorn because it's not sustainable. There's no real value justifying. And I look at every unicorn that ever IPO'd in the public markets. The market's not stupid. It corrected down to a level that the market approved and agreed that it was worth, and then it worked its way back up, usually to a very phenomenal market value. But what happens with these valuations that aren't sustainable by earnings and profitability and a multiplier of your profits, that's what companies should be worth.
Yeah.
That's when bubbles happen. That's why things collapse. That's why market collapse, because there's a moment where it's just no longer sustainable. So with
Yeah.
DLMI is what I'm doing is I'm taking old school Jack Welch, GE, Wayne Izinga, and Berkshire Hathaway and creating a model of companies that'll be across multiple different sectors, all based upon earnings, sustainable growth, and paying our shareholders a very, very nice dividend as we build this model and grow this thing. But I'm also taking in my last 10 years of work and understanding what the future of securities are and digital securities and security tokens in a regulated environment, not crypto, not Bitcoin, not a token, but a regulated, registered SEC digital security. I know that world. I know that's where we're going. And by bringing the two together, I want to be the first public company of its kind that correctly brought old school and new school in a vehicle that everybody could understand, easy to buy into. And ultimately, as a shareholder, I want it to be something that you never want to sell, like a Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock. I wanted something that you will constantly earn from. I wanted something you would pass down from generation to generation. Or if you sell it, it's because somebody offered you a ridiculous price that you just said, shit, I got to sell it. I can't say no to that.
Right.
So that's what I'm building. So in the public markets, very seasoned in that space. A dear friend and colleague for a long time is Mr. Roel Campos, previous commissioner of the SEC. He's helped guide me in things that we're doing in security tokens and how to work with the SEC. Markham I utilize for auditing. So I've always treated my holdings as if they were public, just treating it with revenues, earnings, profitability, distribution of those profits. So now we'll get to see firsthand how well I execute that in the public space with DLMI. But I am all in. I do believe it's my life's work. And if you look at our board, I brought in icons of industry. Mr. Mike Malik, he brought Indian gaming to the Indian reservations throughout the U.S. Partners with Mike Ilitch, so the owners of the Detroit Tigers, the Red Wings, Little Caesars Pizza. Raul Leal, was previous CEO of Virgin Hotels. He's the CEO of the One Hotel, Baccarat, and Treehouse Resorts. I brought in Brandon Fugel. If you've seen him on TV, he owns Skinwalker's Ranch. He's a real estate mogul out of Salt Lake City. Andrew Fromm, #1 IP music broker for music catalogs and songs around the world. Larry Namer, previous CEO or founder, of ETV. And Anthony Scaramucci, our mutual friend. So when you have a support like this, it's the most humbling thing in the world for me, because I used to sell nail polish. That's how I started in my entrepreneur business. I'm selling beauty supplies. Now you look at the people that I get to surround myself with that want to be part of what I'm doing. That's where you have to have an understanding of empathy and humble and grounded. People want to invite you into those rooms and into those worlds. You understand this. You get the same experiences. It takes a special person to be able to get invited into them. But it takes an even more special person to be able to get a re-invitation to those moments. And that's what I'm good at. And that's how I learned how to value myself. And now with people like this, I want a lot of your listeners to understand, the access that these people and the support that these people are giving me for what I'm building, you can't buy that. You can't buy into the music industry. You can't buy into the entertainment industry. You can't buy into the investment bank industry. You have to get the invite. You got to get the support. You got to be blessed. So that's why it's so important when you're building your businesses or trying to start a business, get a good, strong group of advisors, even if it's just one, someone that really believes in you, someone that'll open doors for you, someone that wants to support you. It makes your journey so much easier. And then you also have a professional colleague that you can converse with and have strategy discussions with, not your original inner circle, which could be a spouse or a parent or a sibling. That's not the right inner circle when you're building a business. You need a completely different one to help support your entrepreneur career.
Yeah. No, it's so important. The people you surround yourself with will make or break you. And I think that goes both personally and professionally, you know?
Absolutely. And I'm also grateful for everybody that's screwed me and broke me, because two things have happened. I've learned from those experiences, and I've evolved from learning to spot that again with a person that has a different clothes on or a different name, but it's the
Yeah.
same exact person as the one that screwed you. But
Right.
if you go back and think about it, odds are anybody that has gotten screwed by somebody, there was a bond that was created with somebody else in that moment that was also screwed by that person. So it's a trauma bond. It's someone that you went to Vietnam War with. So you have a moment where you create value into somebody else because that shit person served a purpose. People always serve a purpose. I will disagree with anybody that tries to prove me wrong. It's understanding what that purpose is, how you learn from it, or what could happen 10 years from that moment that was spawned from meeting that crappy person that may have disrupted your entire life. But if you didn't meet that person, A, B, C, D, E, F, G would never have happened.
No, it's so true. Because sometimes I know from my own experience, like you just get worked up or you feel frustrated or, for me, it's like, do I have the right team around me? How do I find the right people to make this happen? Am I attracting the wrong people? So it's like, how do you kind of sniff those people out before they screw you? But you're kind of saying sometimes you can't, but they're a blessing in disguise.
I'm always saying that. And I believe if you're open to the world, you're open to the world. The window's open. The cute little bluebird flies in. You pet him, he eats out of your hand,
Yeah.
or a swarm of hornets fly in. That's just the deal. But learning to close the window as quickly as possible so only a few hornets get in, that's the trick. And you only get there if you're aware of yourself. You can't ever blame other people for where you found yourself. That's key. If you're always constantly blaming others or pointing blame outwards, you're going to find yourself on this hamster wheel or of just the same thing happening over and over again. When you look inside and say, okay, what did I do to allow for this to happen? And that's when you grow. That's when you evolve. And that's when I think your ego starts to completely get chipped away. And at some point, I hope everybody walks around with zero ego because there's no need for one. We're all the same. We all need water and food to survive. We all have the same color blood. We're all the same. Some people, I think, have been around a few times. I do believe in old souls and past lives because there's just certain things that people know that they shouldn't know, myself included.
Yeah,
So
totally.
besides that, there's no need for an ego. It's arrogance. It's obnoxious. And even though you may be pounding your chest and thinking you're on top of the world, I do believe a lot of people that have that big ego are lonely and sad. And when you learn to break that down, you can form real connections with people. You can really find happiness.
Yeah, and that's like the whole, being authentic. But in business, it's tricky because, kind of from my own experiences, like in the past, like when you're too authentic with people, and maybe you're trying to get them to take you seriously, but you're not, certain income or net worth yet. And so you can't be authentic and kind of share your struggles to connect with them because then they won't take you seriously. So it's a fine line in
Yeah.
business, but in personal, it's very different. So that authenticity is so key, but at the same time, it's like, how do you get people to take you seriously when you're not fully where you want to be yet? But still be authentic.
I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to think because I've always been me. And
Yeah,
maybe it's my delivery, but there's a thing, fake it till you make it. I don't like that saying, but I'm
right.
gonna go with what you're saying, where I have definitely appeared bigger than I was, but got bigger than I said I was. So there is this perception of people have to have confidence in you when you're talking about doing business with you. And I think they'll have more confidence in you if you are, like you're saying, authentic and you're being real. And
Yeah.
if your delivery, like, hey, listen, I got my ass kicked over here with this business, to me, I'm like, that's amazing because you know what not to do. I'd rather have a bunch of people around me that know what not to do because that is value. That is
Very well
huge.
said.
And
Yeah.
if you're not voicing that to someone like me, then I may miss an opportunity to say, hey, you have a ton of value because you've gotten your ass kicked for most of your life. So let's go. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still fighting. I'll take that guy or girl any day.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. Yeah, because it's interesting to where it's like I've always felt like I've kind of been authentic, but then I'm like, do I need more of a fake it till you make it so people kind of take you serious? It's a weird fine line. And it's different being a woman in business too. I mean, it's getting better now, but it's like,
Yeah.
what are people's intentions?
Yeah,
So
I can't give
fine
you
line.
my
Yeah.
experience as a woman in business, but so I don't want to say what you're saying isn't true. And you're New York based for most of your professional
Yeah.
career,
And
right? So
it's
that's a
tough
whole
here.
different animal. Yeah, that is a
I
whole
mean,
different animal.
yeah, like, if I step into like, my comedy like world or comedy like chops, like basically like just, get deals done in New York, you kind of have to strap your dick on and step outside, make sure your balls are hanging low, like good to go, like nobody's messing with me. But it's true.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And and my company motto forever is time is our most precious commodity. So in situations like you're describing, and again, I'm not you, so everybody's other has their own journey and their own
Yeah.
reasons for things. But I get up and leave. I've always gotten up and left. If I was in a boardroom or at a meeting with somebody that I was getting bad feelings, bad energy, nauseous, I would just see you later. I'm out. I don't explain it. I don't want to be rude, but that I think a point I'm getting at with that example of me is that frees up time where you can be you. You don't have to go outside and make sure your balls are dragging low and
Yeah.
find somebody that is on your level that you can build with. But you can't do that because you only have so much time in the day. And if you're wasting your time or improperly using your time with people or opportunities that may or may not be real, and you're trying to peacock or you're trying to show your strength to a group that's not even taking you seriously, I just say leave. There's 8 billion people around the world. There's somebody out there that you're going to connect with that's going to work. It's going to be effortless, and you're going to succeed, and you're going to build, and you're going to grow. Trying to prove yourself to somebody, that could be a lifelong battle. I mean, I've seen kids try to do it with their parents for most of their life. It never happens. So
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that. I don't get, and maybe the accident is some formula in my brain. I just don't have time to waste on that stuff. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. And I also think like because you went kind of through like not only life altering, but like you could have died in that moment,
Yeah.
So
Should
I
have
think
if you looked at it.
yeah. So it gives you like a new kind of view on life. And I think when people almost actually die, they get a whole new perception.
Yeah.
And that perception is usually much more positive than the person that has just kind of been, kind of scooting by, and hasn't had that like death face their front door, you know. So it's almost, like that accident was terrible for you, but it was almost a blessing in disguise in a way too.
Yeah, I would take it again. And
Well,
I
don't
do
say
miss,
that, knock on wood.
no, I mean, if I were to go back and say, hey, you want to do it again?
Yeah.
But I do miss the old me. The old me was a lot. And I used to hate this expression, ignorance is bliss, but holy shit, is it bliss? I mean, I get it. I get why that expression came to be. I don't really want to be around ignorant people. But
Right.
if you're not affected or your emotions are closed off because you have this ignorance, it is bliss for your personal life and your personal journey. So,
Yeah,
um,
that makes
but I,
sense.
but I'm grateful that that happened because even if I were to keep succeeding business wise, everything was wrong. It was just not
Yeah.
right. I was surrounded by the wrong people.
Yeah.
And I never would have we wouldn't be talking today. I wouldn't have all these great people around me. I wouldn't have all these different companies that I found my way into and brought into my holding. So, I have to be grateful for it, even though it was the most devastating moment of my life. The other thing which sucked was I woke up in the hospital room alone. A
Oh,
terrible feeling when you're employing so many people. You have all these companies. You wake up and say, "What the hell? What is going on?" I help all these people. I'm constantly last to eat. That was something that I immediately stopped doing when I had to rebuild. I thought last to eat was a good thing. I thought when you're paying everybody else and doing good for others, the whole Jesus model, and if there's
right.
any crumbs left over, I'll take them. Wrong model. Because if I was first to eat and not buying Ferraris or flying on private planes, when I did have that disruption in my business because of an accident, there would have been an even more arsenal of resources there to weather the storm. But because I was paying everybody else first, I was reinvesting in the companies. It was leverage. It was tight.
Yeah.
And I'm the deal maker. That's who I am. I'm the rainmaker. And when you take me out of the equation, and I had all these wrong people around me, it was bad, very bad.
Jeez. Well, at least you're on the right track now, right?
We'll see.
It's that whole airline thing. Put your mask on first. Got to make sure
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
filled up and taken care of before you can be any use to anyone else. But
Good
yeah,
point.
when you tell people no sometimes when they're asking for certain things, you know, sometimes it's a good way to sniff out like who's actually has good intentions and who
Yeah,
doesn't. You
yeah.
know, like who's actually going to be around when you're broken or when you're on top of the world. When you're on top of the world, everybody's going to
Oh
be.
yeah. Yeah,
But
it's an unfortunate part of human nature, and I saw it firsthand.
well, it is. Yeah. I mean, we live in, you know, there's a lot of evil in the world. And also I think the way I mean, we're not going to get into this, but just the way the systems have been set up over the years and everything going on, I think it's like created this just survival. Like people are just surviving. So they
Yeah,
can't, most people can't just be live in their joy, live in their truth, follow their passion, do these different things because they're just striving to get by and like
yeah,
survive, pay for their family, like buy eggs, like things are through
yeah,
the roof. So you get people who now are in desperate measures. And when you're desperate, you could do things that maybe are against your character. So
yeah.
it's just a whole thing that like literally I'm like, give me some mushroom gummies and we could have a whole rabbit hole on this. That's a whole nother
That's a
discussion
whole
that I
different
won't be
show.
having on air. Uh, but yeah. So what do you do? What do you think, like when you hit obstacles now, how do you navigate or what would be your advice to entrepreneurs or people in general that are just like hitting walls and just feel that like, you know, I can't catch a break?
Yeah. Well, I think it's case by case, but the most important thing, you gotta always think, more money doesn't mean less problems. So get that, just put
Well,
that,
there's a song, more
just
money,
go.
more
I
problems.
know, great little ditty. So once you get that understood, the next thing is you're not being picked on. I think a lot of us think we're being picked on because it's hard. Life is hard. School was hard. Math was hard for people. Spelling was hard for people. It just keeps evolving.
Yeah,
I do think what makes it harder, and this is what's so important about understanding life and your passions and what makes you happy. You need to do what you love. If you are not in a job that you don't find joy in because you're surviving, that you're just you're just in the worst possible place ever because
I
you're not even doing
agree.
something you love. So I would say to people that may hear your question, there's so many ways to answer it, but you have to first and foremost look, am I doing what I enjoy? Am I surrounded by people that I love to work with? Am I in a toxic environment? If you can strategically get yourself out of that and into a different environment, the money's can tend to be secondary because if you're happy in what you're doing and you're earning, it just spirals into every aspect of your life. I know a lot of people that don't take bigger jobs and more money because they love where they are. They love their
Yeah.
boss. They love their coworkers. They love the commute, whatever the reason is. So to answer your question, the easiest way possible to anybody listening is that the first thing is if you're facing obstacles or hurdles, is it self-induced because you're in a toxic environment? And then from there, if you are or not, make a decision. If you're not, well, what is the biggest issue that you're having? You're not getting promotion, or you're not getting seen. Where do you need to focus your energy, and how do you need to become more vocal, more visible? Utilizing LinkedIn is the most genius place to be if you want to build a network for whatever your passion is. And you can find people there, you can connect and communicate, you can engage, you can elevate if you properly connect with the right people and you build this right personal business network around you. You don't do that on Instagram and TikTok and all. I think also if you're feeling crappy about yourself, you need to put that shit on pause because
I know,
that's
it's
just
true.
programmed to make you feel awful about yourself. So find a way to just disconnect that. I haven't had Facebook since 2000, since I bought the stock in a plum on the IPO,
And
and it
it's so
plummeted.
yeah, right?
Uh, but you need to. I used to hate this word too, compartmentalize. But it's a really important word. How do you put pockets of joy, pain, pleasure, trouble, and there's a time and place for everything. You got to find some joy throughout the day. It's the most important thing. You got to call somebody like you or a friend, or find a moment to laugh, make fun of a bad experience that you may have just happened. Like, bring light to life, because put on the news. Look what's happening in Tel Aviv right now. Like, there's just,
Ugh,
it is shit out there, and it is
I know.
constant. So if you're not happy in a first world country in America, and you need to have a rude awakening on how bad it can be, find a little gratefulness in that, just to get the dominoes flowing. And then, okay, where do you want to be? Who do you want to work with? Who do you want to work for? What kind of I say like legacy that I want to leave. When I say legacy, for me, it's, am I spending my time where it deserves to be, where I have some kind of an impact to my own personal growth and to anybody around me. I just want it to be a positive impact. I want to find a way to get through the day and go to sleep and feel like, okay, I did some good today. Wake up the next day and just rinse and repeat. But if you're not in that model, and you're in a toxic situation, or you're just surrounded by the wrong people, or not the right job, then you got to make a change, because that's not going to get better. You got to like shake yourself out of that and find a better place to be, or a different place to be, and take a little risk without disrupting, not getting paid, of course, or not making money, because you don't want to add
Right.
that stress to your life. You can be very
No, that's
strategic
the worst.
about moving.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. Yeah, I think there's something to, the joy in what you do. I mean, I'm lucky that I at least like I'm able to do things that bring me joy. Sometimes the money's up, sometimes it's down, but at least I'm happy most of the time.
The other thing is, I
But at
said it
least I'm not
before.
working on Wall Street. I'd have a lot more money. I'm just kidding. There's nothing wrong with Wall Street. It's just I just don't want to, like, I just can't imagine, like, just the whole, like, you have to ask permission to go see your family
Yeah.
and all that stuff. I like having more control over your life. And I feel like I operate
Yeah.
better as a leader than a
Good.
follower. So I'm an entrepreneur, much like yourself. Like, I do better and I think better when I'm in a leadership role versus, I remember I was walking down the street last night, and we happened to be walking like in the 50s, like, by Park Avenue. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
different like banks and stuff like that. And, there's all these like guys out in their little work clothes, like little minions, getting their food that the company paid for, because they got to stay past 7 o'clock, and then
Yeah.
they get their car home. And I'm like, what a life. Out.
But you were in that world. Were you
I
in that
was.
world? So that's my point. You found a way to get out of that world and create your own vision of a life that you had control over. So you're living proof of doing that. And then that comes with a
Didn't
whole
come
nother.
with Exactly. It came with
Yeah.
a lot of struggles. I mean,
Yeah.
trust me, I'd have a lot more stability, I think, but like, would I be absolutely miserable? Sometimes I ask myself that question. I'm like, had I stayed on that financial path, who would I be today?
Yeah.
Would I be somebody that I actually looked in the mirror and liked? I can pretty much tell you the answer would be absolutely not.
I know I wouldn't. And you
Because
feel
I
like
was already broken then, and I felt like
yeah.
I was at that point where I wanted people to take me seriously. I wanted to not hear no. I wanted to. So the money was the driving force behind it, not the passion for the work. And I feel like if the passion for the work isn't there, the money just can't come the way it should.
I agree.
And
I
so
completely
I would
agree.
have been just inherently miserable.
Well, we could not have that. That'd be ridiculous. It'd be the biggest
No.
sin ever. Not gonna happen.
Yeah. Or maybe not with all the money. I don't know. But everything happens for a
You're
reason.
you're
Sometimes
doing
I'm
great. You're
like,
doing
sometimes
great.
like, why did I decide that, 12 years ago, like, talking about my vagina to 300 plus strangers a night was like the right move, but it led me
Yeah.
to everything else. It led me to the challenges, like, not anywhere close to yours, but I fell
It's all
into
relative.
massive
Yeah, it's all
depression
relative.
and anxiety to where I didn't even want to be alive.
No,
And
that's a dark place to be, and
it's
dark place to
awful.
be. But
But
it's not a suicidal thought. It's a thought that you just don't want to be here anymore. You don't want to go through this anymore.
No.
You want to escape this pain, this hurt,
Oh,
confusion. You're questioning, like, you start going back, like, I think I'm a good person. I always help people. I over tip. I make introductions. Like, I just
I
take
know.
care of people. Why would this happen to me? And that's you can't. you can't do why me, because that doesn't make anything better. You just start to slip into this deeper devastation that you think that you're just doomed, right? You gotta break it. You gotta break through that. And I don't know why that struggle has to be. We're not made to work the way we're made to work. We're made to
It's the
find
system.
mates, build families, go out and hunt and gather.
Right. I know.
Read scripture, talk about the old days. Like that's what life's supposed to be about. Money's a relatively new thing in the scheme of humanity. It's like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Why we're it is a system, but like if you start to deprogram that, and I really was hoping COVID did this during a global shutdown. For a moment, people were with their families, with friends, simple things. There was no way to live extravagantly. Everything was closed. There was no way to go anywhere. So I was like, oh, good. The global reset finally lasted 3 seconds. Like, the fact that was completely just missed in humanity, of a moment where forced learning that you don't need much. You just need some good companionship, food and water, and the shelter. You're the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah.
But that got completely bypassed, and I thought would have a much longer moment in our history.
I know, it was a very interesting time where some, it benefited some people. But like when I went through my challenges, I'm like, oh, I was so happy it happened because it led me to the world of personal development and my book. But like during COVID, there was a lot of like, it either helped people or it hurt people, but the divorce rate went through the roof because people were like trapped to somebody they didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a very, I think it like was a time where people just kind of started to awake to like what was important and what wasn't. And they got rid of the things that maybe weren't important. But at the same time, it just created such a crazy, I still can't believe we went through that. And that's like a whole other conversation. I'm like, how did we fall for that? Like, this is
right?
Bananas. And then then everybody was rich, even the checkout person at Walmart, because they printed all this money, were just giving all this money away. I'm like, wait a second, what is going on here?
It was a scary moment to see that 7 billion people could be controlled by a few thousand people. Scary moment where I was like, wow, that's.
But I'm kind of glad it happened in a weird way. The silver lining was that it will never happen again.
To be determined.
Well, I know it won't happen with me. I'll be like, nah, false flag. And I always have the attitude that because I'm religious, I think it's like you have more of almost like a shield around you in a way.
Yeah, good.
Where you don't have as much fear. But it's kind of like if people are like, oh, if there's Armageddon, like, you should have a gas mask, and you should have a gun, and you should have this. And I said, listen, if half the world or more is going to die, I'm going with them.
I was just going to say that I'm jumping on the grenade.
Right. I'm jumping right on it because I don't want to deal with just the pain and the suffering when I know that life on the other side is where we're supposed to be. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't need a gas mask.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Your faith is strong. That's beautiful.
But it's just so sad. It's just so sad, like what's happening now. And it's just, it's awful because, and it's also like the Bible playing out right in front of our eyes. So I think,
but I will tell you, the survivalist people I can talk to forever.
Oh, they're awesome.
I'd rather talk to them.
No, they're amazing. But I'm telling you, but the Bible's like playing out in real time. So the one message I would say, and this is not a religious podcast, and I don't put any religious views on. Preach on. But Madison. I'm just saying, like, I think it's if this, it's a wake up time to make sure you're doing the right thing, living with integrity, being kind, and like getting right with God and repenting for whatever you do, because we just don't know what's happening. And there's more proof that we are starting to be in the end times, and there's a lot of darkness and evil. So if you can be the light in a world of darkness, then that's what you should do. Just Beautiful. Like you, Brian.
And my light's a little dull today, but I appreciate that.
Oh, mine was too, but you brightened it up. This light in your face brightened it up. So
okay. Thank you.
So where can everybody like follow you, find you, all that stuff?
Yes. So I enjoy LinkedIn and Twitter, mainly Brian J. Esposito. The corporate website is eie.rocks. So eie.rocks. I get back to everybody. Please reach out to me, connect with me, ask any questions. I love helping people. I love directing people to opportunities or hope. and never feel ashamed to ask questions or to ask for help. I personally think that's comes from a place of strength when you put your guns on the table and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to do and I need help and I can't figure it out. To me, that's so much better than saying I have a quadrillion-dollar idea and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I went deaf and blind when I was reading or hearing that. So, so anybody, please feel free to reach out. I'd be honored to get back to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been absolutely amazing. It's so much fun to sit down with you and be able to, have this conversation. And thank you to everybody who's listening, wherever you may be. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@next2madison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.